Now we move on to offensive lineman rankings. Gonna start with tackles. Uh, do you want to go first on this one, or do you want me to go first?
I can go first.
Alrighty.
I'll start off at number 5, and I have a man who actually we just talked about in this division, which is Christian Darrisaw from the Minnesota Vikings. I feel like there's an argument to be made that when Trent Williams is gone, he could be the best left tackle in the NFL. He's an absolute athletic freak. There's nothing that he cannot do when it comes to that position in terms of speed, power. It really does feel like, I mean, not to glaze him too much, but it feels like he would be the true successor in terms of the comp to Trent Williams, because of Trent Williams, the way that he's able to be so good is not just how sound he is at the tackle spot, but he has such great athleticism that you can use him almost like some of these guards get used in the run game, and it takes him to a whole nother level. And I feel like Darrisaw is that kind of guy. So Christian Darrisaw for me is at number 5. At number 4, I have another man within this division, and that is Penei Sewell from the Detroit Lions. I wanted to put him higher, and I almost want to say that I think he's the best right tackle in the NFL. There's just one other right tackle, spoiler alert, that's going to be above him. But I will say, in terms of last season, I think that he was the best overall run blocking right tackle in terms of grades and all that kind of stuff. I think he was not as good in terms of the pass blocking, but at the same time, I do think that I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the other right tackle I'm going to compare him to and why the other guy's above him, because I do think that there's some other circumstances when comparing the two that maybe is potentially the reason that Penei doesn't seem as good in terms of the pass blocking, but I still think that he was an absolute force in terms of pass blocking, and overall I do think that this man, one of the best tackles in the league. At number 3, I've got Tristan Wirfs. I was a little I wouldn't say, surprised, but he had, I think, the best year of his career last year, despite the fact that he swapped to left tackle. Usually that doesn't happen. Usually when you're a right tackle, that's kind of where you're going to be, because there's certain limitations or what have you about you that maybe don't translate specifically to the left tackle, which is typically the quarterback's blind spot. And yet, for Tristan Wirfs, he actually looked even better than he ever did at right tackle, moving over to left. So he's fantastic. I don't know what else there's to say about him. It's interesting, too, because he was projected to be a guard, starts at right tackle, was fantastic there. Now he's playing at the left tackle spot, and he's amazing. So there's clearly nothing Tristan Wirfs can't do. And when we talk about versatility, it's something that usually we're talking about when it comes to guards, centers who kind of move around. Tristan Wirfs has clearly shown the ability to move around, despite the fact that he's a tackle. So Tristan Wirfs, he is at number 3 for me from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. At number 2, we've got that other right tackle that I was talking about, and that is going to be Lane Johnson from the Philadelphia Eagles. I can attest, when the Cowboys play the Eagles, Lane Johnson lives up to the reputation, because it feels like the only person that ever really has given Micah Parsons trouble is Lane Johnson. Lane is absolutely shut down. I don't know the numbers in terms of sacks allowed, but I'm pretty sure he gives up like none for the most part. He was the only right tackle, I believe, that was graded in the top 10 in both pass blocking and run blocking, so clearly elite at both. And ultimately, that was kind of the reason I had to put him over Penei. The one thing that I will say, the caveat that was there, is that in terms of at least some of the things like sacks allowed, you do have Jalen Hurts who can avoid some of these things if there is a pressure allowed, to where Jared Goff, maybe not as much. But I don't think that really affects them in terms of the way that they're probably being graded for their specific blocking skills and winning these reps. So regardless, Lane Johnson, he's been one of the best linemen in the league for a very long time, and he has continued to be so. We just hope that as he's kind of getting to the end of his career, that injuries don't hamper him, because they kind of have the last few years. And he's able to play, because when he does, he is fantastic. And at number 1, it is no surprise, it's a man who's been here for a handful of years at this point. It's Trent Williams from the San Francisco 49ers. Best offensive lineman in the league. He's an absolute force. I talked about him a little bit when talking about Darrisaw, but just the ability for him to create such an impact both in the passing game and being such a solid left tackle and preventing anything from ever resulting in pressure on that side for Brock Purdy, I think just creates such a peace of mind for your quarterback. But then also his ability to, be a lead blocker out in the run game, one of the only left tackles in the NFL that is getting this much love when it comes to the scheme specifically running behind him. Because once again, normally that's specific guards, or even like for a Philadelphia situation, a lot of stuff behind, Kelsey back in the day. So it is surprising how good Trent Williams is when it comes to that stuff, and just goes to show how much of a freak athlete he is, because even at his size, he can move and get downfield. So yeah, Trent Williams, he is number one. No surprise there. I think most people would probably agree with that. And that is my top five.
Alrighty. Well, let me share mine. Starting at 5 for me is where I put Mr. Penei Sewell out of the Detroit Lions. Like you mentioned, I mean, a monster in the run game. And honestly, he could probably play left tackle also. I mean, remember, he was projected to do so coming out. It's just the Lions already got a good left tackle, so there's no point in, forcing him to switch, or Taylor Decker to switch and whatnot. So they just put Penei out right. He's been awesome there and has only gotten better and better, and still really good in pass blocking as well. But obviously, huge force in the run game. And I mean, we don't talk often enough when these top 5 picks live up to their expectations. And obviously, Penei has lived up to his expectations, and it'll be exciting to see just if he can keep this up going forward, as well as some of these other guys as well. But he's definitely one of these young guys that have just come in, started dominating right away, basically. So he is at number 5 for me. At number 4 is where I put Lane Johnson of the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, he could probably play left tackle if they really want him to, but they got a pretty good guy over there as well, and always kind of have been. And Lane is been so dominant on the right side for so long. Run game, and like you mentioned, especially in the pass game as well. I mean, handling the likes of Micah Parsons consistently, and he sees him basically 2 times a year as well. So it's not like, maybe he got lucky once, in one matchup one year or whatnot. No, they played twice, and he's been awesome against Micah, and not just Micah, but a bunch of other pass rushers, and just been a very underrated staple of the Eagles for a long time. And one of the reasons why they've been kind of hanging, they've been relevant, is because they don't have to worry about one of the key positions, obviously, on offense there. And he's been amazing in the pass and run game, of course, like I mentioned. So, he's at number 4. At number 3 for me is where I also put Tristan Wirfs. Maybe because he's more of a left tackle, I value him than Lane. And, like you mentioned, we got to see him at left tackle last year, and he was amazing. I mean, his footwork has always been really good, and I think that definitely he got to show that off last year, and especially with his short area quickness on top of, we knew he was a powerful guy to come out of the league. And yeah, like you mentioned, just crazy that he's been able to switch sides, like you said, because we've seen some other tackles struggle, like my guy Braxton Jones, or for the not Braxton, maybe Broderick. I always confuse the two, but the one for the Steelers, he went back to the right side and he struggled. So it's never easy to go back and forth, because then the rules, maybe your rules change, or and then maybe your just instincts change because you've programmed yourself to do it one way and this was the other. Nonetheless, Tristan Wirfs, like you mentioned, handled it with ease, and man, he was awesome in his transition over to the left side, and it'll be interesting to see if he can keep building on it, because it's crazy that he did that on his first year. I wouldn't be shocked if he's higher on this list come next year and going forward, now that he has another off season, another season of getting that under his belt as well. So Tristan Wirfs at 3 of the Buccaneers. At 2 is where I have Jordan Mailata of the Philadelphia Eagles. So 2 Eagles on this list. I mean, he has been such a gem for them to find in the 7th round out of rugby. I mean, everyone, every time I feel like, no offense to the other rugby stars, but someone gets a rugby guy or something from a different league, there's a little bit of intrigue. Like the Chiefs just cut that the guy that they got, but no one really talks about Mailata. I know he's a 7th round draft pick, but he has been a staple for them, and he's also been pretty dominant as well in both the pass and run game. He may not be as dominant as some of these other guys in the run game, but still, does really well. I mean, even graded well as and on top of that, I believe he was a third rated tackle in terms of last year as well. So yeah, it just crazy that the Eagles, like we always say, they always just get away with it. Either a guy falls to them, or they take a seventh round guy out of rugby, and obviously they had to put him in the spots and kind of coach him up. But man, he has been awesome for them, and once again, one of the big reasons why they've been relevant. Him and Lane Johnson, but yeah, I mean, a lot of he is my number two. Unfortunately, to my number one, who is also your number one, Trent Williams. And you said it all. Dude's been dominant for so long. And yeah, now he's in the perfect scheme that, utilizes him in different ways. And a big reason, too, because I don't want, you said, like, it took all the words out of my mouth there. But I do want to add a big reason to show how good he is that the Niners have been able to let go of some pretty, or have had to let go of pretty solid offensive linemen. And for the most part, it stayed intact because of, the pillar that they have in Trent Williams, that they can Shanahan can kind of get lesser guys around him, let McGlinchey go and such, and I've a couple of other guards that have been solid for them, like Laken Tomlinson. He had to go, and I think he got his bag elsewhere and such. So, yeah, Trent Williams, both of our top offensive. We both have him as our top offensive tackle going into this year. So, be interesting to see if he gets his contract, because I know he's been holding out for that. And we'll see if, sometimes when guys hold out for extensions, they don't come back. If they do play week one, right back. It's hard to get right back in the saddle when you've missed preseason and training camp. But we'll see how he fares. Nonetheless, those are top 5 tackles.